Hey everyone, Dr. Frunky here with an exciting new knife consult for you on a knife from a brand new company. This is WingMan EDC, a new company that is run by the folks at Recon One, recon1.com, and the Recon One knife store being well known for having high-end custom knives for sale, and also until very recently they were the exclusive dealer for Shirogorov knives. They have now started their own production company in the same vein as companies like Alliance Designs and Monterey Bay Knives, in the fact that they are using Chinese manufacturers to make new knives. And this is the very first knife, and right away you're going to see a couple of awesome logos. You'll see Tom Mayo and the KickStop logo. Tom Mayo being a legendary custom knife maker from Hawaii, and the KickStop being an awesome invention from Lee Williams, another custom knife maker. As you can see, they demonstrate on their insert here that when the knife is closed, the flipper is ready, but when it's open, the flipper tab is hidden. Here they draw it in this orientation as well, just to prepare you for when you open your knife and you don't see the flipper tab. Here we have some about us information, not really very much, but they do have a website at wingmanedc.com. Interesting knife here. I think that they are really marketing to custom knife collectors with this knife. Lee Williams and Tom Mayo being a couple of the OG custom knife makers. They've been around for a long time and they're highly regarded. So I just wanted to show the packaging here before we even get to the knife, which you can see is sitting right here. Here is the certificate of authenticity. It says WingMan EDC model MDD KickStop. I imagine that means Mayo Dr. Death KickStop model. It's made with Bowler M390, 6AL4V, and it's designed by Tom Mayo. This is serial number 38. I want to say they made 100 or a couple hundred of each of these runs. On the back here, you can see the KickStop logo, you can see the Lee Williams logo, and the Tom Mayo logos, all right here. Very neat certificate of authenticity. I must say I really like this. I'll take this opportunity to say this knife is manufactured by Riot Knives in China. Riot being probably the best high-end production knife maker in the game right now, pretty much anywhere. And so it's great to know that we're going to get very good quality here. Here we can see the knife. I'm going to go ahead and move all the packaging off the screen. I really appreciate a knife with a nice presentation like this, so props to them for that. I do think that I'll just use this opportunity to say they missed an opportunity to explain the legacy of this knife and the significance. Really, there's no information about the knife here at all, just some photos of how to use the flipper, which we all know how to do. I think that they should have explained Tom Mayo and Lee Williams' contributions to the knife world. That's a missed opportunity with this right here, maybe on their next model. Anyways, taking a look right here, we see the MDD-K. I can't say I'm a huge fan of that, but we're going to call it the Mini Dr. Death, or whatever you want to call it. Let's just call it the Mini Dr. Death. But as you can see in the closed position, we have this flipper tab protruding right here. But as I open the knife, that flipper tab disappears. In fact, it rests itself right here on the back of the knife, just as is demonstrated in that video. And then as you disengage the lock and you bring the blade back around, the flipper tab comes right back out. And thus you have the entire importance of this knife summed up in a simple few seconds, the KickStop. And why do I say that? I want to just go ahead and say I think that this knife is a lot of hype and marketing brought to us by a knife dealer that is very good at hyping and marketing. And so I think a lot of people are curious to know whether or not this knife is awesome enough to justify the $399 price point. Yes, this knife is $400. So that is a lot of money for a Chinese-made knife. And we're going to get into sort of the philosophy of what's going on here and talk about the knife in general. But before we get into that, let us go ahead and get some vital signs on the MDD-K, the Mini Dr. Death. So I'll say that This is based off of Tom Mayo's full-size Dr. Death folder. Dr. Death being a 4 to 4 1/4 inch sometimes blade. He made different sizes. They were very large. This is obviously scaled down to about a 3 1/4 inch blade right here. Back to the pivot, you're looking at about 3.6 inches overall, just under 7.5 inches, maybe 7.4 inches of overall length. Handle is coming in a hair over 4 inches at maybe 4.2 inches right there, with an effective grip area at 3.9 inches. The widths on this knife right here, let's get the calipers ready. The M390 blade is coming in with 152.5 thousandths, and the blade handle, the handle is coming here at exactly 1/2 inch, so 1/2 inch wide and a standard blade thickness right there. So let me bring out another couple of knives for a size comparison. Here is the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and the Para 3. As you can see, the MDD-K is on the smaller side. A 3 1/4 inch blade is actually going to keep this in almost the exact same size profile as the Para 3 right here. And so it is on the smaller side of knives. I'll bring out another couple of knives to check out. Let me see here. Here is the Robert Carter and Nick Chuprin BBM, also a 3 1/4 inch knife. And here is the Peter Rizzenti Nirvana 3.0, a 3.5 inch bladed knife. So you can see it is a slim carry. It's a lot smaller than the original design. And sometimes that can be a good thing, and sometimes maybe it doesn't translate quite as well. And I'll talk about that here as we get into the details of the knife, as we break it down anatomically. So before we get into the details, let's talk about the obvious outer appearance of this knife. This has a black DLC handle and an acid washed blade. This comes in a few different configurations. This is not the only one. Namely, they have some different hole patterns. They have some different handle and blade finishes. There's a satin finish in this acid wash. This blade came to me by means of my good friend Sid. He goes by @RumbleBlades on Instagram, so go give him a follow. Thank you, Sid, for sending this along. It is a very interesting knife and very hot right now, so thanks, man, for letting me check this out. But this is just the configuration that Sid chose. There are different ones that you can go to the website and check out the various different options. So let's go ahead and break this knife down anatomically. Up front is this blade done in M390. It has a classic, I don't want to call it a Loveless style, but it's got that, beautiful swedge going on at the top. A very classic saber ground with a top swedge. Very, very nice looking classic Tom Mayo grind. Executed quite well. It is flat ground all the way out to the tip. It is about 155 thousandths, or 152 thousandths, as we mentioned before. So I'll bring the calipers back out. 152, 153 thousandths on the blade stock, and right here behind the edge, we're looking at 0.023. Let's get over here. That's even thinner, 0.018. So pretty thin out here towards the tip. And then it thickens up a little bit out here. In the middle of the blade here, though, we're getting pretty thin. And so all of that is comparable to a Spyderco Paramilitary 2, which hovers around the 0.024, 0.025 range generally. I want to give props to Austin at Epic Snuggle Bunny. He's also done a great video on this knife, so please go and check out that video where he has more of these available and the custom versions of these knives to show off. So great video there. Please go get that, check that one out for more information. As you can see, this one features the Tom Mayo and the Lee Williams logos right here. And on the back, the KickStop logo right there. So I think that's pretty cool. I think that that's very tasteful. There's no Riot branding. There's no WingMan EDC branding. Maybe that is I guess that's the WingMan EDC logo. Is that what we're talking about here? Maybe Lee Williams' logo is slightly different. I'm going to have to look into this. We're going to talk about that in the comments down below. But I still think that they're very subtle logos right here. Maybe this is the Lee Williams logo right here with the KickStop. And then this is the WingMan logo right here. But they don't, nothing is overdone on this. It's very subtle. And I prefer personally the satin finish. This one, I'm not a huge fan of an acid finish, but you know, I guess this is a good way to do it. Heavily stone-washed, going to hide wear very well. I think for these stainless steels, I really like to show off the shininess of them in the satin finish. So that would have been my preference. Moving back to the pivot, this is the whole shebang of the knife right here, running on the KickStop. So I've already shown you the mechanism very quickly. I'll show it to you again. The flipper tab is right here. As you launch it, the flipper tab disappears, but it actually separates itself from the blade and then can be reset as you close the knife. The internal mechanisms are going to be very interesting. There may be a knife surgery video involved in this. I know Austin is planning on doing that. There's some oil leaking out of the pivot right here. Let's go ahead and clean that off a little bit. Good to see that they lubricated the pivot. Got a whole lot in there, it looks like. All right, good. The action on this is very smooth and very fast. I will say the KickStop functions beautifully. If you have ever handled a Lee Williams KickStop knife, you know that the key feature of the KickStop seems to be the leverage that it places on the blade and how fast and hard it deploys the blade. It really is translated well into this production model. They've done an excellent job with it. This knife fires extremely quickly and extremely satisfyingly. I enjoy it very much. They've really translated the KickStop into a production form in a very nice way. It does do something a little bit funny as you close the knife. It causes some weird gritty sounds. Maybe you can hear it. It's when the blade re-interacts with the flipper tab. So you're going to have to get used to that sound as you close it. So it's a slightly different experience than a traditional flipper, but that's what you're hearing in there. As you open the knife, you're going to notice that there is a steel lock bar insert with very early lockup. You're going to notice that there is an area cut out so that you can disengage the lock. There is actually a slightly raised area on the other side where your finger can engage with that. And that is in keeping in line with Tom Mayo's designs. His custom designs feature that. This is not maybe as pronounced as it is on others. Is it full? It might be fully flush. I think it actually is completely flush. So in a lot of Tom Mayo's designs, he actually has that exposed. Here, we're not seeing that. I was noticing that it was not quite the easiest thing in the world to disengage because it's rather smooth right there, and there's quite a bit of lock bar tension. It's not an uncomfortable amount, but it is a little bit more than I was anticipating from such a small knife. But that does give me thought that this is a very secure lockup. I've done some pushing on this, and it hasn't budged at all. So solid, very good lockup, I will say, with a steel lock bar insert. Interestingly high lock bar tension without an ability to have the relief area right here. So I've noticed my finger has slipped off a couple of times. That was the point I was trying to get across, that it's not the easiest thing to disengage. However, there is an over travel stop, so even if you're pushing very hard, you're not going to overbend your lock bar right there. So I'm glad to see that incorporated into these knives. Those are always nice to see for longevity's sake. The custom Mayos and Lee Williams knives do not have this, and so some people may be upset that this is a departure from those custom models. However, I believe that in large production runs, this allows manufacturers to not have to worry about the tolerances of the frames quite as much. They're able to adjust a lot more with these smaller inserts and makes production easier to accomplish. As you can see, this knife came beautifully centered. We'll go ahead and move back to the handles here. As you can see, this one is DLC coated. It features these speed holes in the way of the traditional Tom Mayo holes. Tom Mayo is known for a couple of things, namely his hole patterns, but also for the chatter marks that are created when he does it. It's his own style. You will not see this here. These are perfectly CNC produced holes, so that is a thing. However, I do like this hole pattern. I think if I was going to choose one, I would choose this hole pattern. I like the pivot. It's very subtly done. It's bronzed. The back spacer is done also in DLC titanium. There is a hidden lanyard pin on the inside there. You'll notice that the backspacer features this pinned construction right here and a screw on this side. You know, I kind of wish that they had been able to hide this right here, the screw coming through, I feel like, or at least made it black. It seems like this is totally out of place on an otherwise black knife. And I kind of wish that it wasn't full thickness, or they had come up with a different construction technique right there. It's just, it kind of just has a spot right here on the front. Can't say that it's the greatest thing in the world. Aesthetically, kind of wish they had made this a black screw, and maybe this one as well. This looks to be bronzed a little bit. Just not my favorite look, honestly, not my favorite look. However, now we're going to go ahead and move on to the ergonomics and what I think about this knife. So this knife, as I mentioned before, was a 4-inch plus size knife. In being a 4-inch knife, you have a lot more of a free area on the handle in which to place your hand. There's a whole lot of geography to move your hand up and down a 4-inch or 4.25-inch blade handle right there, knife handle. When you miniaturize that knife to a 3.25-inch model, it does not necessarily translate perfectly. And what I mean is, it forces your hand into a single position. I have a size 8 sterile glove hand, rather large hand, extra large, regular gloves. And what this kind of forces me to do is to hold the knife in a singular position, which is fine. However, it's not, I would say, an ergonomic dream, because I find that these little points right here are a little bit uncomfortable and not as grippy as maybe I would like them to be. It does function okay as an over-the-top sort of penknife kind of a situation. But I've just noticed that these are not particularly comfortable, and my hands are forced to be on top of them. And then sort of as I'm flipping the knife repeatedly, which is sort of the whole point of this KickStop knife, I'm noticing that this corner at the back of the knife is quite uncomfortable. It's not sharp. They've knocked down the corners, but it's still angulated such that it kind of goes into my palm right there in an uncomfortable way. And because I only noticed this because this knife has the KickStop flipper on it. Basically, the whole point of this knife is to bring the KickStop into a production knife. The knife itself is rather bland, and that is something that we should talk about too. Tom Mayo's designs are usually rather plain, and that's the whole point, and I respect that tremendously. It's the same reason that I enjoy Peter Rosenti's designs. Very simple, plain, clean titanium, clean looks, very well done fundamentals on the knives. But when you translate that into a production knife, it becomes very plain. And in the setting of a lot of other knives that are available right now, translating Mr. Mayo's designs into a production knife, I'm not sure. I'm just not 100% convinced that this was the right way to do it, because the Dr. Death model was much larger. The way that my hand fits on this is very awkward. It just doesn't want to be in a comfortable position at any point. And I can't describe that to you well. That is my hand, and your hands may vary. I think if you had a smaller hand than I do, you might have a better time. However, the corner back here remains the same. Something else we can talk about is the pocket clip. This comes with a 3D milled pocket clip, which is quite attractive. Hidden hardware construction on that, but it's got quite a bit of spring to it, quite a bit of tension to it, and a nice amount of ramp. Honestly, it works quite well. It's a little bit on the stiffer side, but it is still serviceable. I think that it's going to work quite well, and it's a rather deep carry clip, and so only about this much of the knife is going to stick out. I think this is a very good job. They showed some production prototypes with some rather bad looking clips, and so I was happy to see that this came out this way. I will say that there is quite a problem, however, in this design element right here. The pocket clip comes directly onto the Lockbar relief right there. And so if you are trying to put this in and out of the pocket, a combination of the relatively high tension combined with the fact that it's right on top of the Lockbar cutout means that it's going to snag unless you're holding your pocket, which is a minor annoyance. This is not the easiest thing to put in and out of the pocket. It's not a deal breaker, but it is a minor annoyance. And for folks that purchase high-end knives all the time, you're going to understand what that means. So what do I think of this knife? If I'm perfectly honest with you, I feel like this knife was a very strong hype machine for a new company's development, and that's fine. I just don't think that this is truly a great knife. I think that the KickStop was executed perfectly, but I'm not sure that the rest of the knife exactly sings to me. The acid wash is not to my taste. I think the blade in a satin finish is brilliant and is a very functional thing. But when I put this in my hand, it's a little bit on the awkward side. My hand never feels like it's in a good, secure location for cutting. I can't really put my finger on it, and it's rather uncomfortable in a lot of different ways. The Lockbar tension is very high, and the clip function is a little bit annoying. And so it's an okay knife. If I'm honest, it's fine. It will do the job just fine. And if you really need a KickStop knife in your life, this is a way to get it for $400 rather than $4,000 like you might pay for any other custom Mayo Lee Williams collaboration. However, I don't think you have to have this knife. I'm not sure that it's the next best thing in knives, because at the end of the day, the KickStop is a flipper tab. It's an index flipper, and when the knife is closed, it still has this ridiculous flipper hanging off of it, and it kind of doesn't look great. And so I feel like we have to be honest with what we're looking at and what's being fed to us by certain social media platforms, and myself included. I think that you should believe, half of what you read and none of what you hear, but I'm trying to show you these knives for what they really are. This is a great knife. Honestly, it's going to be fine, but I just don't think that it's much more than a standard flipper knife at this point, with some minor ergonomic and everyday carry flaws that might be avoided in their future models. This is the first knife from this company. They have a bit to learn about making a production knife, but I think it is an interesting introduction into this company. What I expect from this company is very interesting collaborations. I'm thrilled to see that these two makers, Lee Williams and Tom Mayo, are involved in this project. I certainly hope that any negativity that I mentioned in this video, it's not directed towards them in any way. I'm talking only about this knife in its production form. But it's exciting to me to have a company like WingMan EDC coming out here with some interesting collaborations. And so I look forward to seeing the next set of knives that they come out with. And hopefully we find something that maybe I love a whole lot more. Get this knife in hand if you want. It's $400 new. I'm not sure that I would buy it for $400, but I may be one of the few people who would say that. So take what I say with a grain of salt. Let me know what you think of this knife down below in the comments. Go ahead and click like and subscribe to my channel. I will leave some links so that you guys can find out how to purchase one of these. And follow WingMan EDC on Instagram, guys. So thank you very much, and as always, take care.